So welcome to the deeper stuff. This means that you've been through all the exercises and you've reached this point. So well done for completing that. Here I'd like to go into a little bit more depth about particular subjects. For example, resonance and resonance behaviour. So when you make a sound in your body, not only does it resonate in that particular part of the body according to the pitch or level or tone, you could say, but you need to look a little bit deeper into this. What does it mean? What's resonance behaviour? Well, resonance behaviour is really interesting. If you focus your attention on somebody, let's just say, who is performing or dancing or playing football or doing something, 98% of your neurological system will be mirroring, and these are mirror neurons, mirroring their precise feelings and everything that they're doing and everything, in fact. Well, not only is that fascinating in itself, that means that only 2% is individually you. And that's also fascinating. So putting that into the context of music and singing and performing, when you're singing a song, whatever you're focusing your attention on, whatever you're feeling inside, the person who's watching you will be feeling as well. They'll be 98% mirroring what you're doing and what you're feeling. Now that is absolutely extraordinary. So it also begs the question, what are you thinking about when you're singing? So if you really want to express a song well, not only do you have to resonate properly and do all the right things, breathe properly and support and all of that kind of stuff, but it's actually your intention. You have to be really intentional about each musical phrase that you sing. It's very important. Otherwise, well, what's happening? Have you ever been to a concert where you're watching the person performing and you think, wow, that is really great, but there's just something missing? And you go away thinking, well, all the notes were in the right place, everything was sung perfectly or performed perfectly, but there was just something that left you cold. Well, that could possibly be what they are thinking about as they're performing. So resonance behaviour is really, really important. It's even important when you're communicating on a day-to-day basis, because as you're speaking, well, that's sound as well. So let's look at that. Let's look at what sound actually is. And this is really important to understand what sound actually really is. Well, after all these years and a lot of questioning, I've researched a few things and I've come to the conclusion that sound is a carrier wave for consciousness. And whatever it is that you're thinking or intending will be transferred from you to whoever's listening. And that is the carrier wave, the sonic carrier wave. It's absolutely amazing when you really think about it. So if you then look at what happens when you are in a choir or a group of people, when you're singing together with somebody, Bjorn Vikhoff discovered that your heartbeats synchronize. So even that is an incredible phenomenon. I mean, to think that when you're singing with other people, that you're synchronized as one body. And then if you add in resonance behavior as well, well, that's another thing, isn't it? And then if you think about the intention with which you're singing, so if you're all focused on the same thing and you're all intending the same outcome, well, that's quite extraordinary. So in the 1950s, Hans Jenny discovered that sound actually really does create form. And this correlates beautifully with Genesis, if you like. In the beginning was the word or the sound. And it's just quite extraordinary because that also correlates with quantum physics and lots of other things. We won't get into too much into the science here. But when you actually examine the shape of sound, that is another amazing thing. And these things are known quite well these days. Cymatics is what they're called. And they're beautiful, beautiful shapes. The shape of a note, for example. Now what's interesting is that the shape of, let's just say, A flat is always the same. So no matter how many times you sing one particular pitch of A flat, so let's just say it's A flat 3, it will always create the same sort of pattern. So that in itself is an extraordinary thing when you really think about it. And then if you pass sound through water and you look at the shape of that, and then when you think, I'm 75% water, so what's happening to me as I'm singing? That's another extraordinary thing for you to question. I won't go too much further because it's a long, big subject, and I get very, very animated and very excited about it, but I just want to put it in context, which is that with resonance behaviour and understanding the intention with which you're singing and emotionally being able to control what's happening as you're emoting the sound, well, you know, that's a pretty amazing thing. If you can do all of those things consciously, then you've taken a deeper step into understanding what the voice is all about and what music is all about. So you could say that sound or music or singing is the carrier wave for consciousness or intention or both, or a lot more things that we couldn't possibly even put into words at this point in our development. So over the years, I decided that I would look a little bit more closely at the anatomy of the body and the vocal cords and so on and so forth. I looked at it and I thought, goodness me, this really actually looks like the lower part of the body. So if you look at the jaw, it's almost the same shape as the hips. And if you look at the glottis and the vocal cords, it's rather like the internal organs. So that was another thing. It was just like, oh my goodness, yes, of course, what's here is mirrored here. And then I looked at the intestine and I thought, well, actually, that looks like a brain. And it's almost like below the heart, everything is reflected. And we create with our mouths, with what we say. If sound creates form, well, that's a really, really extraordinary thing, because whatever we speak means, well, it comes into being, you could say, because it's our intention being carried out into the physical universe. So whatever we sing, it's the same thing, only it's a little bit more potent, you could say, because the effect of sound on our atomic body, on our neurological system, is quite extraordinary. And that takes me back to the Masaru Emoto experiments, the water experiments. You can look those up yourself. But to see what sound looks like in water, and that we're 75% water, and then how all this correlates, is quite an extraordinary thing. So if you think about it, everything is vibrating. Everything is, in a sense, frequency. So therefore, at some level, there must be some kind of sound that goes along with that. So in 1998, there were 2 Russian scientists who caught on to this idea, and they did some experiments, which I won't go into here. You can look it up if you're really interested. They did some experiments to see if sound or language could change the DNA. And cutting a very long and scientific story short, I'm just a lay person, it turns out that it can. Well, as far as I'm concerned, of course it can, because if sound is a carrier wave for intention and consciousness, then it must have an effect. So every word we speak, as I said, every word we speak and every word we sing, every sound we utter has some kind of effect, both internally and externally in this universe. I think that's absolutely incredible. So it's really important, once again, I can't emphasize this enough, to make sure that what comes out of our mouths is what we really mean. So when we're singing, what are we singing? What words are we singing? What songs are we choosing? What are we choosing to put out into the environment, and what's the intention behind it? And that will come out in the voice. Now, another amazing and extraordinary thing that has been discovered is that not only can sound change the DNA, but also that it has an effect over things like opening the dopamine pathway and disease, like cancer. So when I was 17, I got really, really enthused about sound and the realization that everything has some kind of frequency or note. And I realized that disease must have that. And if we could only just discover what that frequency was, then we could find the antithesis to that and then heal ourselves. And I mean, that's just a very, very simplistic way of looking at it. It wasn't until about 5 years ago that I discovered that in the 1930s, Raymond Rife built something known as the Rife machine, that dealt with exactly all of these things that I've been thinking when I was 17. And that's another thing you can look up yourselves. So to go deeper into sound, to go deeper into what's happening when we sing and what we're emoting and what we're giving to other people when we're performing, I think it's really incredible if you can just start to think about it, and it will open up a whole new world of experiences and make you much more conscious as a performer and conscious as somebody who is transmitting, in a sense, intention from you to the environment. And not only that, from you, from your heart to another person's heart. Because it's the heartbeat that synchronizes when you sing together. So let's put that into the context of resonance behavior, changing the DNA, that language can have an effect over you and your environment, and that your voice, if it's resonating properly, can change things internally, physically, mentally, neurologically, and goodness knows what else. Well, think about it. It's a very, very deep experience, and this is just the beginning. So there are lots and lots of benefits to singing. It lowers blood pressure, it helps with stress, it makes you less stressed, in other words. It builds up a sense of community if you're singing with other people, and of course with resonance behaviour, good communication, hopefully anyway. And there are other health benefits as well, but I'll let you discover them yourself. I think what's really wonderful is that this research is continuous, and we keep discovering more and more things that we didn't know before about what happens when you sing musically, what happens to the atmosphere, and so on and so forth. And it's very exciting. I find it very interesting that this little rudder here steers a great big ship, and where it's situated, the vocal cords, for example, are very near to the vagus nerve, and also the tongue and the resonance of the higher notes, say for example, are close to the pituitary gland and the pineal gland. But that's a whole new area of research which is going to take a little bit more time to explain more clearly. So in the next video, or the update, then I will go into that in more detail. And I'm very excited about it, actually, I have to say. I'm really excited. So I'd just like to say thank you to all my students, and thank you to Luke Strata, who has produced this video. Thank you so much.